Oleksandr Usyk is not just a boxer. He is not just a world champion or an Olympic gold medalist. He is a living symbol of Ukraine's resilience. When the world sees Usyk step into the ring, it sees more than an athlete. It sees the spirit of a nation that refuses to give up. A nation fighting not only for its land, but for its right to exist. When the full-scale war broke out in 2022, Usyk was at the height of his boxing career. He had just taken the heavyweight belts from Anthony Joshua. But instead of celebrating or preparing for the next big fight, he returned home. He took up arms. He stood in defense of his country. He did not do it for PR. He did not record flashy videos or make statements for applause. He simply followed his conscience. This move shocked many in the sports world. A global star with millions in contracts, fame, and international recognition suddenly goes to war? But for Usyk, it was simple. He is Ukrainian, and when Ukraine is in danger, he must be there. That moment changed everything. Usyk went from being a national hero to a global symbol. The world began to see not only his talent, but his strength of character. He showed that you can be strong not only with your fists, but also with your heart. After a while, Usyk returned to boxing. But every entrance to the ring was no longer just about sports. Each fight became a statement, a message. Ukraine is alive. Ukraine is fighting. Ukraine will win. His opponents became secondary. What mattered most was the flag on his shoulders. What mattered was the gaze of millions of Ukrainians who saw in him a reflection of themselves. Tired, wounded, but unbroken. And Usyk bore that responsibility with dignity. He never used war to promote himself. On the contrary, he repeatedly emphasized that he fights not for himself, but for those who cannot, for soldiers at the front, for people under shelling, for children growing up under sirens. And this sincerity captured the world's attention. Western journalists began to write about him not just as an athlete, but as a person, a Ukrainian who embodies the struggle of his people. When he defeated Anthony Joshua for the second time, it was not just a victory in the ring, it was a symbol. We can win even when the world says we shouldn't. We can withstand giants. We can hold our ground. That victory was watched in trenches, in bomb shelters, in hospitals, and each blow Usyk delivered was like an answer. To every missile, to every tank, to every enemy. He became a voice, not loud, not aggressive, but firm, honest, human. That is what makes Usyk special. He does not shout. He does not seek to dominate the spotlight. He simply does his job. And that job is much bigger than boxing. It is the work of a man who carries the burden of a nation. When he speaks about peace, people listen. When he asks the world to support Ukraine, people respond. Because he is not a politician, he is not a propagandist, he is a fighter. And the world believes fighters more than politicians. Every time he enters the ring, millions hold their breath. Not just because of the result, but because they know this is Ukraine's moment. A moment when it can speak to the world not with cries of pain, but with a voice of dignity. And Usyk gives that voice. But Usyk's mission goes beyond symbols and victories. He raises millions for the Ukrainian army. He buys vehicles, drones, protective gear, everything that saves lives on the front lines. He uses his influence not to boast, but to help. Every interview, every press conference, he ends with words about Ukraine, about the war, about people who suffer. While some stars avoid uncomfortable topics, Usyk always speaks honestly. He doesn't embellish reality. He doesn't try to sound political. He says it like it is. Homes are being destroyed. Children are dying. Soldiers are holding the line. He understands perfectly well that his words matter, and he uses that power not for himself, but for his people. In the international arena, Usyk became a kind of ambassador, an unofficial, yet deeply respected representative of Ukraine. People who don't follow the news still know Usyk is from Ukraine, and if he fights, then Ukraine is fighting too. His image becomes part of global perception. It reminds the world that the war continues, that Ukrainians have not surrendered, that courage lives not only on the battlefield, but also in the soul of every person who continues to resist, even in the boxing ring. But it's not just the West that watches Usyk. Russia sees him too. And for Russian propaganda, he is a painful symbol, a Ukrainian who wins, who doesn't break, who becomes stronger with every trial. He contradicts the narrative that Ukraine is weak or divided. He shows the opposite: strength, unity, dignity. And for this, he is hated by those who cannot stand the truth. Yet he is never driven by hatred. This is another important aspect of his personality. Usyk doesn't spread anger. He speaks of love for his land, for his family, for his people. He carries this love into every ring, every interview, every action. That is why people believe him, why they support him, why they follow him. Usyk became more than a boxer. He became a symbol of how you can remain human in inhuman circumstances, how you can fight without becoming cruel, how you can suffer without losing your heart. For millions of Ukrainians, he is hope. For the world, he is a reminder that strength is not just physical, that real victory is measured not in medals, but in values. Usyk's path is not over. He continues to fight, in the ring, outside the ring. With every step, he proves that being Ukrainian today is not just about nationality. It is about choice, the choice to stand, to resist, to love, and to never give up. In a time when the world is tired of war, Usyk does not let it be forgotten. He reminds us, with fists, with words, with silence, that Ukraine stands, and with it stand all those who believe in freedom, in dignity, in truth. That is what makes him more than a champion. That is what makes him the voice of Ukraine.